Vladimir Putin once believed his war in Ukraine would be swift, decisive, and victorious. Instead, it has become a grinding conflict that drags Russia deeper into isolation and financial strain. But just when he thought he could rely on secret oil shipments and the uncertainty of American politics, France stepped onto the stage. Without firing a single shot, France has delivered two devastating blows, one at sea and one from space, that may reshape the war entirely. Tonight, we'll uncover how France has become Putin's newest nightmare and why these moves could change the balance of power in Europe. Russia's Shadow Fleet. The Hidden Armada. Russia's Shadow Fleet is a clandestine network of more than 1,000 aging oil tankers. Bought from across the globe, patched together and often unsafe, these ships operate under false flags to sneak Russian oil past sanctions. Why it matters. Oil is Russia's lifeline. With sanctions choking off revenue, Putin relies on this fleet to funnel discounted oil to buyers in India, China, and Venezuela. Without it, Russia's war chest dries up. France strikes. On January 22nd, the French Navy intercepted the Grinch in the Mediterranean. The ship was disguised under the Comoros flag, but French authorities confirmed it was part of Russia's Shadow Fleet. Macron declared, "We will not tolerate violations." UK support. The Royal Navy tracked the vessel through Gibraltar, proving this was a coordinated Western operation. Psychological impact. For Putin, losing one ship isn't catastrophic, but the symbolism is. If France and its allies start seizing more tankers, Russia's entire Shadow Fleet becomes a liability. Every voyage could end in capture. Suspenseful angle. Imagine Putin watching his oil lifeline shrink, knowing he can't openly claim these ships because they're disguised. He's trapped by his own deception. Shift tone. But the tanker seizure was only the first strike. The second is far more dangerous for Russia. Macron's revelation. In his New Year's speech, Macron announced that France now provides 2/3 of the intelligence Ukraine uses in the war. That's more than the United States. Why it matters. Ukraine depends on real-time intelligence, satellite images, troop movements, radio signals, to plan strikes and defend against Russian advances. France's satellites. CSO Constellation. 3 advanced satellites offering resolutions down to 18 centimeters per pixel. Enough to identify not just tanks, but their exact models. Ceres satellites. Triangular formation that triangulates radio emissions, exposing Russian communications and radar. Commercial support. Pleiades satellites from Airbus add even more coverage, with Ukraine having helped launch them. Suspense hook. Every time Russia moves troops, sets up decoys, or hides equipment, France's satellites are watching. Ukraine can strike with precision, wasting no ammunition. Contrast with US. Under Trump, intelligence sharing has been inconsistent. At times, it was paused or threatened. France offers stability, ensuring Ukraine isn't left blind. Psychological angle. Putin may have believed he could manipulate Washington. But Paris? Macron has proven far harder to sway. Financial strain. Russia faces a high budget deficit, blocked reserves, and limited credit. Oil exports are critical, but now riskier than ever. Military strain. With France feeding Ukraine constant intelligence, Russia's battlefield secrecy is collapsing. Legal angle. International law backs France. Under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, unsafe or deceptive ships can be seized. Russia has no legal defense. Future scenario. If France and allies escalate, dozens of ships could be seized. Ukraine's strikes could become even more precise. Russia's war machine would bleed faster. Suspense close. Putin's nightmare isn't just losing ships or secrets, it's losing control. France has proven that even without firing a shot, it can shake the foundations of Russia's war effort. France's actions are not isolated events. They represent a larger shift in the balance of power across Europe and the wider world. For decades, the United States has been the unquestioned leader in supplying intelligence, enforcing sanctions, and coordinating military strategy. But now, France is stepping into a role that few expected it to claim, becoming the backbone of Ukraine's survival and a symbol of European independence. Europe's awakening. Macron's decision to seize Russian ships and provide the majority of Ukraine's battlefield intelligence signals a new era. Europe is no longer waiting for Washington's approval. Instead, it is acting decisively, proving that it can defend its own neighborhood. Putin's dilemma. For Putin, this is a nightmare scenario. He counted on divisions within Europe, hoping that countries would hesitate to confront Russia directly. Instead, France has shown unity with allies like the UK and Germany, tightening the noose around Russia's economy and military secrecy. Ukraine's advantage. With France's satellites and intelligence streams, Ukraine can plan operations with confidence. Every Russian convoy, every hidden radar, every disguised tank is now at risk of exposure. This makes Russia's battlefield deception far less effective. Psychological warfare. Beyond the material impact, France's moves strike at Putin's image. He has long portrayed himself as untouchable, able to outmaneuver sanctions and manipulate Western politics. But France's boldness undermines that narrative, showing the world that Russia's tricks can be stopped. The risk of escalation. Of course, these actions carry risk. Russia may retaliate with cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, or attempts to disrupt European unity. But France's willingness to take the lead suggests that Europe is prepared for those challenges. The message is clear. Russia's shadow fleet is vulnerable, its secrecy is collapsing, and its financial lifeline is under threat. France has proven that even without firing a missile, it can weaken Russia's war effort. And if these actions continue, Putin may find himself fighting not just Ukraine, but the combined will of Europe. What comes next? France's bold actions are not just about the present moment. They are shaping the future of the war and Europe's role in global security. The seizure of a single tanker and the dominance of French intelligence may seem like isolated victories, but together they signal a larger transformation that Putin cannot ignore. The ripple effect. Other European nations are watching closely. If France can seize shadow fleet ships and provide decisive intelligence, Germany, Italy, and even smaller states may follow suit. A coordinated European campaign could dismantle Russia's oil lifeline piece by piece. Ukraine's resilience. With France's satellites and intelligence streams, Ukraine is no longer dependent on a single ally. This diversification of support ensures that even if American politics shift again, Ukraine will not be left blind or defenseless. Russia's shrinking options. Putin faces a narrowing path. His fleet is vulnerable, his secrecy is collapsing, and his ability to manipulate Western divisions is fading. Every move he makes is now under surveillance, every shipment at risk of capture. Global implications. Beyond Ukraine, France's leadership sends a message to the world. Europe can act decisively without waiting for Washington. This could reshape alliances, trade routes, and the balance of power for decades to come. Suspenseful framing. Imagine the next chapter. France and its allies launching a systematic campaign against the shadow fleet, while Ukraine uses French intelligence to strike deeper into occupied territory. For Putin, the walls are closing in. So where does this leave us? France has proven that power is not only measured in weapons, but in information and resolve. By seizing ships and sharing intelligence, it has struck Russia in its most vulnerable places, its finances, and its secrecy. For Ukraine, this is hope. For Europe, it is a declaration of independence. And for Putin, it is a warning. The war he thought he could control is slipping further out of his grasp. The war of attrition and the road ahead. The war in Ukraine has become a brutal contest of endurance. Russia is betting that time, fatigue, and political divisions will eventually break Ukraine and its allies. But France's recent actions prove that Europe is not only holding firm, it is striking back in ways Putin never anticipated. Attrition defined. Wars of attrition are not won in a single battle. They are won by grinding down the enemy's resources, isolating them diplomatically, and exposing their weaknesses. France's seizure of a Shadow Fleet tanker and its intelligence dominance are exactly the kind of blows that weaken Russia's long-term position. Financial chokehold. Every ship seized is more than just lost oil. It is lost revenue, lost credibility, and lost confidence in Russia's ability to sustain its war machine. Information dominance. Every satellite image, every intercepted signal, every piece of intelligence France shares with Ukraine erodes Russia's secrecy. Deception becomes harder, surprise attacks less effective, and morale weaker. Psychological warfare. Putin thrives on projecting strength. But when France, a European power, openly challenges him and succeeds, it undermines his image both abroad and at home. His people see the cracks, his allies question his stability, and his enemies grow bolder. The road ahead. If France continues this dual strategy, attacking Russia's finances at sea and empowering Ukraine with intelligence from space, the war's trajectory could shift dramatically. Russia may find itself unable to fund its military, unable to hide its movements, and unable to dictate the pace of the conflict. Picture the battlefield months from now. Russian convoys moving under the cover of night, believing they are hidden. But above them, French satellites orbit silently, capturing every detail. At sea, another Shadow Fleet tanker slips through the Strait of Gibraltar, only to be intercepted by European forces. And in Kyiv, Ukrainian commanders plan their next strike, armed with intelligence that leaves Russia exposed. This is the new reality. France has entered the war, not with tanks or missiles, but with law, technology, and resolve. And in a war of attrition, those weapons may prove more devastating than any bomb. Global reverberations. France's actions against Russia are not confined to the Mediterranean or the skies above Ukraine. They are sending shockwaves across the globe, reshaping how nations view power, alliances, and the future of conflict. Energy markets under pressure. Every seizure of a Shadow Fleet tanker disrupts oil flows. Buyers in Asia and Latin America who rely on discounted Russian oil now face uncertainty. Prices fluctuate, supply chains tighten, and nations are forced to reconsider their dependence on Moscow. Allies taking note. Countries like Germany, Italy, and Poland see France's boldness as a model. If one European nation can seize ships and dominate intelligence sharing, others may follow, creating a united front that Russia cannot easily counter. Adversaries watching closely. China and Iran are studying these moves. They understand that Europe's ability to enforce sanctions and share intelligence could one day be directed at them. France's actions are not just about Russia. They are a demonstration of what coordinated Western resolve looks like. The future of warfare. This conflict shows that wars are no longer won solely with tanks and missiles. Information, surveillance, and economic disruption are now weapons as powerful as any bomb. France has proven that satellites and legal authority can cripple an adversary without firing a shot. Suspenseful framing. Imagine a world where shadow fleets everywhere, whether Russian, Iranian, or North Korean, are hunted down by coordinated naval patrols. Imagine intelligence networks so advanced that no army can move without being seen. France has shown that this future is possible. The reverberations are clear. France's actions are not just weakening Russia, they are rewriting the rules of global conflict. For Ukraine, this is survival. For Europe, it is empowerment. And for the rest of the world, it is a warning. Secrecy, deception, and shadow fleets may no longer guarantee safety. The battle for narrative and legacy. Wars are fought not only with weapons and strategies, but with stories. Putin has long tried to control the narrative, portraying Russia as resilient, resourceful, and untouchable. Yet France's actions have begun to rewrite that story in real time. Narrative shift. The seizure of a Shadow Fleet tanker is more than a legal operation, it is a symbol. It tells the world that Russia's tricks can be exposed, its lifelines cut, and its secrecy shattered. Intelligence dominance. France's satellites and surveillance networks don't just provide Ukraine with data, they provide proof. proof that Russia's moves are visible, predictable, and vulnerable. This undermines Putin's image of control. Legacy at stake. For Putin, the war in Ukraine was meant to cement his legacy as a strongman who reshaped Europe. Instead, France's boldness threatens to define his legacy as one of decline, deception, and defeat. Europe's rising role. For France, this is about more than Ukraine. It is about showing that Europe can lead, act decisively, and defend its own security without waiting for Washington. Macron's gamble is reshaping how history will remember this era. Suspenseful framing. Imagine the history books decades from now. Will they describe Putin as the man who built a shadow fleet only to watch it unravel? Or will they describe France as the nation that turned the tide, proving that intelligence and resolve can defeat secrecy and deception? The battle for Ukraine is also a battle for narrative, and right now, France is writing chapters that Putin never wanted to see. Ships seized, secrets exposed, alliances strengthened. This is the story unfolding before our eyes. And in the end, it may not be tanks or missiles that decide the war, but the power of nations willing to act boldly, to shine light into the shadows, and to prove that deception cannot outlast determination. The human dimension. Behind every tanker seized and every satellite image captured, there are human lives shaped by these decisions. France's actions may seem technical or strategic, but their impact reaches far beyond military maps and oil markets. Ukraine's civilians. For Ukrainians living under constant bombardment, intelligence from France means survival. When radar sites are exposed and air defenses destroyed, it gives Ukraine a chance to protect its skies and its people. Every successful strike made possible by French intelligence saves lives. Russian citizens. On the other side, ordinary Russians feel the squeeze of sanctions and shrinking oil revenues. As Shadow Fleet ships are seized, the government struggles to fund its war. This translates into economic hardship at home, rising prices, fewer opportunities, and growing frustration. European unity. For Europe's citizens, France's leadership is a reassurance. It shows that their governments are not passive observers, but active defenders of peace and stability. This strengthens public confidence and builds a sense of collective resilience. Psychological impact. Wars are not only fought on battlefields, they are fought in the minds of people. France's bold actions send a message of hope to Ukrainians, of defiance to Russians, and of determination to the world. Suspenseful framing. Imagine a Ukrainian family hearing that France has provided the intelligence that stopped a missile strike. Imagine a Russian worker realizing that the oil tanker his country relied on will never sail again. These are the unseen consequences of France's decisions, shaping lives far beyond the headlines. In the end, this war is not just about tanks, ships, or satellites. It is about people, families, workers, soldiers, and leaders whose futures are being decided by the choices of nations. France's actions remind us that even in the darkest conflicts, courage and resolve can change the course of history, not only for governments, but for the millions of lives caught in the storm. The final reckoning. Every war reaches a point where the question is no longer who has more weapons, but who has more will. France's actions against Russia mark that turning point. By seizing ships and sharing intelligence, France has proven that resolve, law, and technology can be as devastating as missiles and tanks. The collapse of secrecy. Russia's Shadow Fleet once sailed with impunity. Now, every voyage carries the risk of interception. Putin's oil lifeline is fraying, and with it, his ability to fund the war. The collapse of deception. Russia's battlefield tricks. Decoys, hidden convoys, disguised movements are being exposed by French satellites. Ukraine fights with eyes wide open, while Russia struggles to hide in plain sight. The collapse of control. Putin built his image on dominance, but France's boldness shows that even a single European nation can challenge him directly. stripping away the aura of invincibility he has cultivated for decades. The rise of Europe. Macron's gamble is more than national pride. It is Europe's declaration that it can lead, defend, and act without waiting for Washington. This is the birth of a new geopolitical reality. Suspenseful framing. Imagine the moment when Russia realizes that its fleet is hunted, its secrets exposed, and its finances drained. Imagine Putin staring at maps that no longer show opportunity, but only risk. That is the reckoning France has set in motion. This war will not be decided by one battle, one strike, or one negotiation. It will be decided by endurance, by who can outlast the other. And in that war of attrition, France has given Ukraine the tools to survive, and Russia the burden of fear. The Shadow Fleet may still sail, but it sails under the gaze of Europe. Russian troops may still move, but they move under the watchful eyes of satellites. And Putin may still speak of strength, but his words echo against the reality of ships seized, secrets revealed, and allies united. France has entered the war, not with armies but with resolve. And in the end, that resolve may prove to be the weapon that changes history.